So Asad Hashmi writes, how did you get started on your fitness journey and what would you recommend for a beginner? My fitness journey has been something that's been on and off since I was a kid. I've generally been an active kid, right? And I think this has been the case for most people that grew up in the late 80s and 90s, and into the 2000s, or before the advent and before internet was huge and digital media and sedentary lifestyle became all that much more apparent. One of the things was, as a kid growing up, one, my dad put me into taekwondo classes and then later into karate, and then after that, dad made sure I was in swimming classes, put me in soccer, put me in baseball. There was where I lived, recreational basketball was actually really popular. So just playing basketball, joining the rec team. So this is something that I've kind of had, like this level of activity in general throughout my life. Even in high school, I was doing martial arts. I was doing tournament training, and I was playing football in my freshman and sophomore year. So these are both activities that just in general, like physically, I've been physically active for most of my life. However, I actually became really sedentary and got out of shape after college, or maybe towards the tail end of college, where I started doing freelance consulting, got more involved in work stuff, getting done with school, getting married, and then moving to a different city. All of those different transitions just kind of one on top of the other over time. Before I knew it, I was like, I was typically, for me, normal weight was anywhere between 175 for a 6 foot tall individual, all the way to maybe 185, and that was like if I was heavy. And so, but then when I got older, and all of a sudden I see my waist size growing, and I went from next thing I know, it's not even that I'm 185, I'm 195, 200, 210, 215, 225, 235, almost, I think I must have passed 240 pounds. I was wearing a size 44, 46, or maybe a 48. I think I got up to a 48 in waist size. And that to me was just like, oh my God, right? But then even then it was just like, oh, you know what? Just find clothes that fit, right? And I did that. But then later I started noticing stretch marks on my sides, right? And I'm like, yo, that's nasty, right? How can, this messed up? Why, stretch marks on the side? That for me was it. On top of that, coupled with the fact that, in my family, we heart disease on one side as well as diabetes on the other side. So these are common things. And so this is something that my dad would always kind of make me aware and cognizant of. And so that's when I was just like, you know what? I need to make some changes. And now, granted, I had a history in terms of, it's not like I didn't know where to start. And for me, at the time, I was just like, well, now, granted, I didn't have a background in physiology and things like that. I didn't know about how, the different aspects and the timelines of the human body in terms of I knew what I knew based on the schooling and training I went through, which was mostly martial arts and sports. So I knew at the back of my mind, it's like, all right, if I want to lose weight, I just got to be more active. But then I realized it was actually a lot more difficult to get active as an adult than it was as a kid, right? As a kid, you join a rec team. Like, what rec team in a town that I've not grown up in, with people I don't know? That was the biggest challenge, actually. So, but the culture of DC that I was in, the first thing I started doing was like, you know what? Just start walking. And just started walking a lot more. That was the first thing. That's one of the things that you want to start doing. You'll notice, and I was with a friend earlier. He's not that fit, and came over for iftar, and we started walking. And normally what would be a good 30-minute, 45-minute walk, after 15 minutes, this individual is sweating profusely. And I was and I've barely broken a sweat yet. Now, for me, it takes about a good, even in Houston evening humidity, it takes about 35 minutes for me to start, sweating. I'm talking like drip sweating. And this individual was starting to drip sweat like right away. Like I could see beads of sweat all over his head, and he was like, "Yo, I'm done." And not that he was tired, but he just didn't want to feel that discomfort of being very sweaty and stuff. And so, and I understood because I'd been there, and I realized that the first step as a beginner is that you want to start walking, right? Start walking 5,000 steps a day, and if you can hit that 8,000 steps a day, if you can hit that 10,000 steps a day. Now it's hard, even for myself, to always hit 10,000 steps a day. It's not easy. Now I can hit 10,000 steps a day when I do a lot of when I'm out and about doing a lot of errands and things like that. Boom, I hit my 10,000. Not a problem. But in general, if I have my normal routine, then it's challenging. Now for Ramadan, what I've done to maintain that that discipline of ensuring that I hit my 10,000 steps, what I do is after iftar in the morning, I go for a walk. I go for a good hour walk. I put something in my ear. I got my headphones. I put that in my ear. I listen to something, whether it's an audiobook, podcast, or what have you. And so sometimes it's like 90 minutes. I come back. That's like 8,000 steps at least, if not 10,000 right away in that single session. And then after iftar, sometimes I ask my wife to come with me. Sometimes she doesn't. But for me, it's like after iftar, going for that walk is also important. So like at minimum, having that, just getting up and moving. Sometimes when you work a sedentary job, like a desk job, and I have a desk job, right? I work in marketing management and multimedia production. Now, if I'm not on an actual shoot where I'm getting to be up and about, then I'm at the desk editing. And so, and even if I'm doing analytics and things like that for any of the marketing campaigns I've got, what have you, then, that's still, that's Excel work. That's data crunching. That's, that's still at the desk, at the computer. Now, one of the things I've tried to do is I've tried doing some of that work away from the desk, away from the, the sedentary location. So I'll bring it to the dining table. I might stand up and do it, right? So that way I move about. Or, I set myself a timer every 25 minutes, take a break, go do some squats or something, go for a little stroll or what have you. I used to do this in DC a lot. I would set myself for 2 blocks of 25 minutes. After those 2 blocks of 25 minutes are done, I just literally step out of the office and go for like a 5 to 10 minute walk. I come back and get back into the thing. But that was the thing, that start walking, start moving, because if you're just sitting around for like 8 hours at a time, and then you go to the gym, like that's not going to necessarily do it for you. In fact, your muscles might get bigger, your muscles might get stronger, but a big part about personal health is cardiovascular capacity, as they call it, cardio, right? But the thing is, a big part about cardio isn't that you just push it for, you push it every now and then. No, a big part of that is that you ensure that you ensure that you're making it work. It's not just sitting around all the time. So like that's something that I would recommend, is as a beginner, that's what you want to start doing. Get up, start walking. Now, if you really want to boost your cardiovascular capacity, like joining martial arts is going to do that for you. Now, don't get me wrong, martial arts is not a substitute for fitness. In fact, if you just do martial arts, what's going to happen is within the month or within 90 days, your body's just going to adapt. So if you still have the negative patterns of unhealthiness, whether it be the food that you eat or the sedentary life that you maintain, then martial arts, the first 90 days you might see some changes, then all of a sudden your body adapts, and then your body and everything just goes back to normal. Granted, you might develop efficiencies within movements and what have you, and that's why you'll find a lot of martial artists who are pretty good at martial arts, but they're also out of shape. They're also fat. They're also very gut-like. Now, if you're talking about competing as a sport, now if you play a sport, then that might boost your cardio. You play basketball, you do martial arts in terms of competition. Now, I know martial arts in terms of competition is not for everybody, right? Because it's violent. Especially if you do MMA and things like that. However, I think a great alternative is, and this is something I'm learning now, is jiu-jitsu. There's no striking. It's wrestling essentially, right? But it's jiu-jitsu. It's Japanese wrestling, and it's about submitting people. And there's a lot of, and you will always work up a sweat. And that's one of the things. Now, I went into jiu-jitsu thinking that, you know what, I'm in shape. I'm in very good shape. You know, I've been working out for the last several years. I've maintained general strength standards, and that definitely was there. But then the area that I realized I was genuinely lacking was in my cardiovascular capacity. And so when I realized that, that's when I basically said, okay, you know what, this was the missing link in my own personal health and wellness, but that's me at this level. Now, flip that around. Let's say I go into jiu-jitsu and I haven't, developed strength and things like that. Then, there's always that risk of injury, but there's risk of injury in any sport that you play. Right, that's just a general rule. Now, strength training helps minimize potential injuries, and so that's why the two typically go hand in hand. That's why I made a couple of videos talking about that. But going back to your question of like what's a good option for somebody who is just starting out, who's a beginner, I would recommend after you start walking, and you develop this habit of walking and you make it part of your life, where it becomes to the point where it's like, oh man, I gotta go on my walk, right? Oh, I just ate food, I gotta go on my walk, right? And it's like, once it becomes like that, and it won't take long, it takes a couple of weeks to get to that point where you feel like, all right, I need to get up and go, I need to walk. Once you start doing that, then I would say get into genuine strength training. And one of the things that you can definitely look into, and this is a book I recommend for folks who, it depends on your personality really, right? If you are a type of person that, and I've talked about this before, right? If you are the type of individual that is in the middle of nowhere, small town America, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you come to a stop sign, and you simply stop at the stop sign because it says stop, because you're good at following rules, or you're the type of individual that comes to that stop sign and you'll only stop at the stop sign because there's traffic there, because you see a reason to stop. Now, if you're these two type of individuals, then I would suggest go find a good program to follow, is at least for that gets you started. And this is a program I started, in fact, and I saw the greatest amount of change and results following this program. It's by this author and fitness expert by the name of John Romanello, and in collaboration with Adam Bornstein. These guys got together and they produced a book, Man 2.0, Engineering the Alpha. It's a great book. It's a great starting book. They come at it from the perspective of hormone optimizations and whatnot. I started, in fact, they tell you to start the book by do 30 days of fasting. I'm like, great. I just finished up Ramadan. Well, that's when I first started. I think it was in 2012. I just finished up Ramadan. I'm like, this is great. Now, the book recommends that you start during the fasting period. So you started fasting and then you get in on the program. I had just finished Ramadan, so I'm like, all right, you know what? And the reason they do it is because fasting is an activity after about 30 days causes your body to become a lot more insulin sensitive, right? And so, and therefore, it becomes more effective in utilizing and leveraging the energy that you put into your body, i.e. the food. So I would say that's a good second step for you to go ahead and get started. So I hope that helps. Basically these two steps if you're just starting out, to help you make progress in your health and wellness. Let me know if this was of benefit to you. Leave me a comment in the comment section below, and I'll see you soon.